Greetings and welcome to Chapter 5. In this chapter, what we're going to focus on is advertising and essentially some of the mechanics that go into it. We're going to examine models relating to outside agencies, inside agencies, and really the decision-making process that underlines that choice, if you will. This chapter opens up with an illustration regarding Richardson's Group and how it's the largest independent agency, generating significant billings, and is really a useful force in many organizations' efforts. Just to give you a bigger perspective, depending on how large the organization actually is and what their strategic intent actually is, marketing managers either are heavily involved in the production of creatives and really guide on a granular level the path that a organization takes for communicating its products. Many of the elements we've discussed essentially can happen in-house. However, if you're larger or if there's a strategic decision to outsource the activity, then an agency is brought in. For some of our hotels, we do it in-house. Some of it we do outhouse, or rather, not outhouse because we know what that means, but rather we send it out for operational execution by an agency. So in this chapter, we're going to look at the essential ingredients in advertising, particularly a campaign. I'll give you some practical examples. We'll evaluate the book's opinion regarding whether to use the company's employees or an external agency. I'll tell you right now, generally I disagree with what your book has to say about this, and I'm biased one way, and I'll tell you straight up. I think we can accomplish quite a bit in-house. Sometimes you have to outsource it, but my general opinion is if you have the talent and you have the resources, you should do it in-house because you have far more advantages. But if you don't have either of the two, then outsourcing it certainly is an option, and if you don't have the time as well. However, I strongly recommend you oversee that process. We'll look at how companies choose advertising agencies, the roles that people play in those agencies, and the steps that are taken for putting together these campaigns. What are some of the primary goals of advertising, the key elements of setting up a budget, what are the issues in media selection process, and how a creative essentially facilitates the advertising strategy, if you will, or the effectiveness of the advertising. So jumping into it here, again, this chapter presents an overview of managing the advertising function. The process of choosing an agency is discussed, then the roles of various advertising personnel is presented, and it closes with the managing of advertising campaigns, including topics such as advertising reach, the goals, the budget, and the creative brief, if you will. Now, the message theme is an outline of the key advertising components that you want to convey to the audience. A leverage point is the key element in the advertising that taps into or activates a consumer's personal value system. The appeal is the approach used to design the advertisement that attracts the attention or presents information to the audience. The executional framework explains how the message will be delivered. These are important components that I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we continue this discussion. This graph presents an overview of advertising design and really the process. It begins with developing a strategy, and we'll dive into that in detail here in Chapter 5. And then it proceeds to choosing the appropriate appeal. That'll be something we'll look at Chapter 6. Then there's the executional framework, which is Chapter 7. The message strategy, again, covered in Chapter 7. And finally, the decision of the media selection, which we go in detail in Chapter 8. And really that's the overall process here. And all of these components impact advertising design. Now, when we talk about advertising, reviewing the roles of advertising and integrated marketing effort is important, and particularly whether you're selecting an in-house agency or, sorry, not in-house, meaning whether you're selecting yourself and hiring the talent to execute it, or whether you're outsourcing it and hiring an agency to do it. When I was brought in to consult for the lodge and spa, I was looking at Blue Magnet, Zimmerman, and Mayfield. Three different organizations, if you will, to conduct the marketing for this hotel. The total ad spend between Zimmerman and Mayfield, because the advertising was shared, was close to $135,000 for this property, essentially, with a huge portion of it being contributed towards email marketing and really, to some extent, stuff that can be done in-house. So what I propose is a selection of an external agency to execute some of the more technical things. Uh, I could have probably supported this hotel if it was my sole job, in terms of making sure the emails go out, making sure the newsletters go out, running the paid search, doing the remarketing, doing the website hosting, and the social media. But given the fact that I have 44, I just couldn't support this property. So we chose to outsource it, hire a third party to essentially look at the site maintenance, the strategy for distributing the promotions across the digital landscape, the SEO, the social media, and the paid search components of it. We looked at really all of those different areas and was able to take a budget that was at 135,000 and reduce it to 75,000, with my opinion being that we can receive the same amount of results but at a much lower cost. And we did that through an external agency, outsourcing it. When I was on property working with 4 hotels, I did a lot of the grunt work myself and was able to save the company thousands of dollars, because partly we had the talent, we had the resources, and we had the time. So that's the process that we essentially chose and went with, if you will. Now, when you're, again, selecting the strategic goal you want to go into, there's several things you have to take into consideration. Advertising is still a major component of the IMC process, if you will. In terms of total market expenditure, advertising represents about 41% of the total. But the role of advertising varies. In the consumer marketing realm, advertising tends to be an important component. In B2B, it often serves as a supporting role because a lot of your resources are invested in the salespeople themselves. There'll also be a variance within major sectors. For instance, some consumer product companies will place a greater emphasis on other forms of marketing and use very little advertising, if you will. For others, it may be just the opposite, and it really varies. Now, there's some advantages to using an in-house approach. There's a lower cost, like we've talked about, a consistent brand message because you're articulating it, you and your team, better understanding of the product and the mission, faster ad production, you get to work closer with the senior management, and lower turnover rate in the team. However, if you outsource it, the costs go down to some extent because you don't have to necessarily keep the talent in-house. And depending on your campaigns, again, you might essentially choose to go this route as we did, or you might choose to keep it inside, depending on really your opinion. To some extent, you are opening your doors to people who practice this on a more regular basis across multiple industries, so there is that opportunity for greater expertise. The outside perspective is also important, and access to top talent. Although I would contend that if an organization hires right and really thinks about the people that they're bringing into the company, you can acquire the top talent in-house, if you will. Regarding the spend, if you will, generally speaking, if you're going to spend money, 75% of it should be devoted towards media buys, meaning actually getting the placement out onto the distribution channels. 15% should be the creative work by the agency, and 10% should be the ad production. So to give you an example, when we go through the process of say even setting up a pay-per-click campaign, typically if we spend $4,000, $400 will be paid to the agency to manage that campaign. Some of those campaigns I manage myself, so we don't have to pay anything, but the majority of the investment should be in the ad spend, the media by itself, and less on what you're paying the creative for, or the production, if you will. Now there are several options: crowdsourcing, in-house versus agencies outside. Crowdsourcing is a recent alternative to choosing an advertising agency. Crowdsourcing really involves seeking ideas from the public and even videos of ad production. Two companies that have successfully used crowdsourcing are Harley-Davidson and Doritos. Unbelievers use it for their meat sack products, and really there's a number of other things. Doritos is known for their Super Bowl commercial. While it would appear the cost would be much lower, it actually is not. Most crowdsourcing involves a content on a website, which costs money. And then the entries have to be judged, and in most cases, the ad is professionally produced once the idea has been selected. However, the traction you can get is significantly advantageous, if you will. Now, when you're looking at external advertising agencies, you can go with boutique or full service. And really, there's a spectrum out there. Some agencies will cover all of the aspects, a one-stop shop. Others specialize on very niche markets, such as website design. Some agencies do it all. Like I said, Zimmerman is one of those agencies that do it all. But you got to keep in mind that for these full service agencies, you're going to be paying full service prices. It's like staying at a Marriott in downtown Rochester, paying $249 a night, or staying at the Keeler Inn Suites, paying maybe $147 a night. You get the same bed, more or less, in the general location. However, the amenities and the environment you pay for are quite different. So that's something to keep in mind. Mostly you want to set your goals, and really choosing the agency requires time and effort. While companies can shortcut this, such an approach often results in the best agency not necessarily being selected, if you will. Because I know my field, when we go through the process of selecting an agency, I know what they do. I know what they're planning on doing. I know what we can achieve. I know what the organization wants to achieve, and we are able to better select the agency. Sometimes this isn't the case. I go to the dentist and I have no idea what he's doing in my mouth. I have a general sense of what we both want to accomplish, me having a healthy smile, him having the ability to practice his profession and provide for his family. So in that kind of structure, we're mutually going to benefit from this relationship. However, to be honest with you, I have no idea what the heck he's doing in there. I'm just trusting him. And to some extent, the same logic follows when it comes to hiring outside agencies within organizations, particularly when it comes to e-commerce. They don't really have a clue what these people are doing. They know that these people have had success in the past, and they're trusting them. So, the process can be different for each organization and really each project, more or less. Goal setting should occur before contacting an agency. You really want to select what you want to try to achieve. Are you building your brand? Are you generating sales volume? I mean, generally speaking, you want to make more money when you're investing in advertising. However, you want to be more you want to be more selective as far as how you're going to measure success, what that looks like, and how this agency is going to help you to accomplish that. Again, to give you an example, when I bring in an agency to manage the digital marketing efforts of, say, one of our hotels, I do my research and I say, this is where the hotel is standing. These are the keywords it's targeting. It's ranked on the 15th pay slot, the 10th slot, the 56th slot, the 50th slot on the search engine results page. I want to improve that. Help me to do that. We're currently spending $25,000 in email marketing. I want to reduce that, and I want to get better results by tracking the return on investment. Help me to do that. I mean, you really want to set your goals and make sure you guys are on the same page. The second step in the process is setting the evaluation criteria. Again, this should be done prior to talking to an agency so you don't get swayed either way. But you want to choose the size of the agency, their experience level. You want to identify any conflicts of interest. When we were looking at that Pine Mountain property, there was an agency called, the individual was Tarek, and he was doing the marketing for our competitor. And the property wanted to bring him in and have him do some of our marketing. And to be honest with you, that, in my opinion, and some others in senior management, was a conflict of interest. How can you have one agency supporting two properties that compete for the same market share? Now, to some extent, there are some markets we don't compete in this property or rather competitor with, but sometimes there's a conflict of interest. You got to look at their reputation, their capabilities, their purchasing. I remember bringing in a PR agency for the Hyatt Residence Inn, no, sorry, the Residence Inn Midtown, and they just got finished with their remodeling, and they've got a close to brand new product. And the agency was brought in, and I was trying to talk to them about, what can you deliver for $15,000, because that's how much they wanted. And they're like, well, we're gonna pitch the story to this newspaper, and we're going to really try to generate buzz. And I was like, could you quantify that? Could you help me to understand how we're going to get a return on that? And they failed to articulate it, so we didn't go with them. They were selected for another project with the W in Buckhead, but that's partly because of their relationships and their ability to influence the media, if you will. Once the list has been narrowed down to 2 or 3, now it's time to ask for a creative pitch, or what your book calls a shootout. Agencies are given a specific problem to address, and the creative pitch are extensive, projects for these agencies so that the companies can seriously evaluate their capabilities, if you will. When we talk about advertising, in an advertising agency, there's some key individuals. The account executive is the liaison between the company and the agency. I deal with a lot of account executives. Some of them are better than others. They represent the organization to me, and also me to their creative team, more or less. In some cases, I deal with account executives who are actually involved in creating the product, managing the traffic, and planning the account. In other cases, not so much, if you will. It really varies. Quality communication is extremely important. Just to give you an idea of what that might look like, if you open up my inbox, you can see quite a bit of email. I generally get anywhere between, on a slow day, 25, maybe 30 emails. On an extremely busy day, much, much more. I currently have 6,546 emails in my inbox for work alone. I'd love to say that all of these are extremely effective and extremely useful emails, but to some extent, a lot of it is falling back on what somebody else said 3-4 days ago, or even 3-4 months ago. I mean, if you look at the string of emails, you can see that over time the message can be lost. And in all honesty, to that point, there is a significant amount of time that is considered waste. The survey found that 30% of the staff's time was wasted or used ineffectively due to poor communication. About 75% of the agencies went through significant changes in direction with the client. Agencies often deal with multiple people, so they have to cater to multiple requests and really perspective. And having that streamlined is important, if you will. Now, advertising campaign management involves these 5 steps: conducting and reviewing the advertising research, establishing the objectives, reviewing the advertising budget, selecting the media, and really looking at the creative brief, if you will. So when you do the research, you need to understand the consumer base, the purchasing benefits, and not just the attributes. And I'm going to show you the guts of some of the stuff that I'm doing just so that it's not exactly boring to you guys. So we're looking at a campaign here that focuses on, well, in this case, the Lodge and Spa, but I'm going to log out of that. And I'm going to show you one that's running. So this is AdWords. If you ever search for, say, hotels in Dallas, there you go. You see the layout here. There's a number of things that pop up. This is what we call the carousel. This is, oops, that's my little widget, but this is your advertising coming from AdWords. This is your hotel pricing. This is your organic listing, again, hotel pricing and maps. This changes depending on what you're looking at. But these ads here that you see on the top and right hand side, they're generated from this system here called AdWords. I've got a budget of about $500 a month that I've set for this hotel. And what I've designed this ad to do is to target businesses that are sending people to that market and that are searching for very specific locations such as Park Central Airport hotels, hotels near Texas Instrument. I've also got a comp set where people are searching for our competitors and our ads are showing up on the right hand side. And to get to this level of detail, you really need to understand your market, which is the point of this slide that we see here. You really need to understand how the consumers are behaving, how they're going to use your products, and really things that relate to that end of the spectrum. Then you want to look at the product, the benefits that the product will actually bring as far as the key selling features, desirable features, things of that nature. Your book talks about focus groups. I'm okay with focus groups. My world is largely driven by data and information. I know how you interact with my advertisement, so I don't really need a group of people telling me what they think about it, unless they're my bosses or somebody who can actually provide some significant insight. So I don't really work with focus groups too often, but in the consumer packaging world, to some extent they rely on that as well. Here is an ad by the agency we talked about earlier regarding Motel 6 and really their push for the essentially the organization Motel 6 and the benefits that they can bring. At the end of the day, what Motel 6 is a hotel that's inexpensive. You can go there, you can have a good clean room, and you can stay and not pay a lot of money. And their point is that when the lights shut off, whether you're laying in bed at a Motel 6 or, say, a Ritz-Carlton, it's all the same because it's just dark. And there's value in that messaging, particularly for consumers who don't have a lot of money or who don't see value in spending extra money in getting a better room. So they did their homework and were successful on that level. The second step in advertising and really managing advertising is to set the objectives like we've talked about. This includes building the brand image, informing the consumer, persuading them about a brand, and really things that revolve around those types of elements, if you will. A primary goal of advertising is to build the brand image, and really brand equity is extremely important. We talked about this before. When you go to a Starbucks in Rochester, Minnesota, New York City, Boston, even Chatfield, chances are you're going to get the same type of coffee that you would from any of those locations. I know there's no Starbucks in Chatfield, but I'm just making a point. That being that regardless of the location, whether it's large or small, the brand ensures that there's consistency regarding that product offering, and therefore there's brand equity with that. essentially it boils down to trust. People trust brands. Uh, this advertisement by GameStop provides information to the consumer that when they get stumped with a game, they can contact the employee at GameStop who can help. Um, and there's some benefit to that, if you will. A common goal of advertising is to persuade consumers that a particular brand is superior to the others, and they should choose this brand. And this ad articulates that nobody does I do like we do. Advertising is often used to support marketing efforts. It can be used as a framework for consumer promotion, such as for a coupon offer or really things that generate demand. Um, Behavioral controls are important. Encouraging some type of action is incredibly important. All of my advertising has a strong call to action, particularly in a B2B world, whether they're filling out a form, calling a number, things of that nature. The third step in the advertising management process is to review the advertising budget. Sometimes you have robust budget, sometimes you have small. As we talked about with one of those properties, they had $175,000 that was spent on a regular basis for advertising. We're able to reduce that to $75,000. I know the figure I showed earlier was 135, but they actually hid some funds in other components of their P&L, if you will. Now, media selection is important, and it's a challenging task, if you will, and we'll look at it more in detail in chapters 8 and 9. But at this point, it's important to realize that to pick the right combination of media requires understanding the media habits of your target market. Do they use smartphones? Do they read magazines? Do they watch TV? What kind of TV do they watch? Things of that nature, if you will. And lastly, in the advertising management process is writing of the creative brief. And that's the appearance of the brief can vary, if you will, from client to client. But most contain these 5 elements: the objective of the campaign, the target audience, the message theme, any support that can be used, and any constraints. The creative brief is prepared by the client, often with the help of the account executive or account planner from the agency. It's a document used by the creative team and the agency to prepare the advertising campaign, so it needs to be clear and provide enough information so that the creative team understands what the client actually wants. Because again, the account executive is an intermediary, if you will. The first component of the creative brief should be to state the objectives of the campaign. And we've really talked about this before. The objective of this advertisement for Sub-Zero was to enhance the brand's image. The target market was business buyers of industrial refrigerators in the food service industry, such as restaurants and really cafeterias. Information about the target audience is critical. Creatives needs more information than just demographic information. They need to understand the base business, if you will. The brief needs to contain the primary message, particularly the themes that the client wants to convey to its target market. The message theme is a series of ads for milk that we've seen here in the past. And in elaborating on that, the theme should be the one unique selling point that the client wants its target audience to get, not multiple. It needs to be a little bit more concise, because you got to keep in mind that we're exposed to a lot of how do I put it, advertising. So we want to be able to make the most out of it. We want it to be impactful, if you will. When you bring up my ads, what they will show you is you can get a room for $79 if you stay 7 nights. When we look at the landscape here, we see a variety of pricing. You can stay at a Comfort Inn and Suites for $69. You can stay at a Comfort Inn and Suites for $79, and it really varies. But for some of the premium hotels, say as at the level of Hyatt, you're not going to see that type of pricing, so it's going to stand out. It's a lot like, I guess, going to Walmart and seeing not necessarily Tiffany purse, but something to that extent, or maybe seeing an iPhone for less than what you would expect. That's the type of impact this ad will essentially have. Ads often provide support for their products. It's the responsibility of the client to provide any support that might be used in the advertising campaign. If it's an automobile industry, then they need to provide information about that. In the ad that you see here, Provision, a number of support items were provided about micro thins. They're 30% thinner, 40% lighter, 4 times more scratch resistance, and really the statistics that go behind what makes their product that much more valuable, if you will. Constraints are important, such as legal and also disclaimers that comes from the client as well. Um, and the answer to these questions are provided in the next slide when we look at it. So what's the creative, the objective, the target audience, things of that nature when you're looking at this ad? The objective is to increase awareness of the smaller size cans. The target audience is senior citizens. The theme is that new cans contain a smaller portion. The support is 30 cents introductory coupon to help incentivize that. And the constraint is the copyright logo, if you will. Approximately 62% of advertising budgets are spent outside of the United States. The two major differences are the process of selecting an agency and preparation needed for international advertising campaigns. Sometimes you do need to outsource it if you're going outside of the United States. Now this graph illustrates non-US ad budgets to sales revenue for some major corporations. For instance, 83.5% of Coca-Cola's advertising budget is spent outside of the United States, and 74% of the company's income is generated outside of the U.S. And the trend follows for some of the other organizations there. So in general, that was the chapter. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for your time.